There's something underneath Ice Mountain. I'm not talking about the underground fortress. I'm not talking about the city underneath that underground fortress either, but something even further down below the earth. And somehow it's connected with Mos Le'Harmless, of all places. The ancient spellbook is mainly known for one thing, its unique combat magic, especially blood and ice magic. But the ancient spellbook also contains a series of teleports. You'd be forgiven for forgetting these teleports really existed because frankly, a lot of them are of pretty questionable usage to the average player. If you don't know the origin of these names, the locations that the ancient spellbook teleports send you to is going to feel pretty bloody random, but there is an in-universe explanation. The ancient spellbook, by virtue of being ancient, is trying to send you to the location of some very old cities, most of which no longer exist. At a lot of these teleport destinations, you can see the ruins where these ancient dwellings used to be, but not much else. I want to draw your attention to one teleport in particular. The Lassar teleport is an especially strange one. It teleports you to the top of Ice Mountain, north of Falador. There's not really any evidence of an ancient city here, with the exception of the Oracle, who lives in a tent, and the Black Knight Fortress on the north face of the mountain. So maybe the Black Knight Fortress is Lassar. Maybe the Black Knights just found this old fortress and fixed it up. After all, not all the ancient spellbook locations are completely in ruins. There is perhaps some truth to this, as an Ardra, the ghost who gives you ancient magic at the end of Desert Treasure, makes reference to the shining spires of Lassar. So it sure sounds like there was something built around or atop Ice Mountain. But there's no evidence of anything approaching a spire at the Black Knight's fortress, and frankly, based on its design, it doesn't come off as particularly ancient. However, just around the corner from the fortress is a door. A very old door, completely unknown to the Black Knights. This door was only recently dug out of the rubble of Ice Mountain, and then blown open by a team of, archaeological experts during the events of the Below Ice Mountain quest. Inside that door is where the real mystery starts. Through the shattered doorway and down the strangely carved purple halls, we discover a large golem, doors flanked by runic symbols, and then, surprisingly, given this place has presumably been sealed for a long time, a blind dwarf named Romano. Romano introduces himself as the only living Incando dwarf and tells you that you've just broken into what remains of the city of the Incando dwarves, Camdozal. You can let him know that there's at least one other Incando dwarf still alive in Thurgo, who really doesn't live that far away, which gives him at least a little bit of hope that his race doesn't completely end with him. Side note, I feel the need to point out that Romano looks like a completely normal fantasy dwarf. I have no idea why the fuck Thurgo looks like that. The Incando dwarves are very important to this story. Have you ever stopped to wonder what happened to them exactly? Before Romano, why was Thurgo the only living member of an entire sub-race of dwarves? Well, it turns out that the Fremennik, of all people, led a crusade all the way to Asgarnia and attacked the Incando city of Camdozal. The Incando dwarves, with their golems and their magic, greatly and fatally underestimated the combat prowess of the Fremennik, and when the walls of Camdozal were broken down, every single Incando dwarf the Fremennik could find was put to death, with very few scattered survivors managing to hide among the ruins. Every other survivor would eventually pass away, leaving only Romano alive in the ruins of their city. Why exactly the Fremennik did this and what else they got up to on that little crusade is a little outside the scope of this video. That might be best left for another time. Maybe consider subscribing if you want to see that in the future. So nearly all the inhabitants of Camdozal were wiped out and only Romano remained within the walls after all these years. When you speak to Romano, he mentions something interesting. He mentions that Camdozal was built upon the ruins of an older civilization, a civilization of which little trace remained by the time the dwarves arrived. This is a lie. That ancient civilization absolutely existed, but it was very much still flourishing when the Incando dwarves first arrived at the city that they would rename to Camdozal, but was at the time known as Lassar. And in an act that mirrored their own doom at the hands of the Fremenniks hundreds of years later, the Incando dwarves laid siege to Lassar, took control of the whole city and put all its occupants to death. At least, that's what they thought. Let's dig a little deeper here. Thousands of years ago, much of the mainland continent of Gielinor was controlled by the god Zaros. He created the ancient spellbook alongside founding many cities, including Lassar, and essentially ruling half the world. This came to a very abrupt end when his right-hand man Zamorak betrayed him and stole his godhood, causing Zaros to disappear. This sudden power vacuum triggered the God Wars, as every major and minor deity began to duke it out for dominance. The two largest forces in the God Wars, Saradomin and Zamorak, committed to a campaign of reducing every Zarosian city to rubble in an attempt to completely remove Zaros from the history books, believing that if they did so, he would never be able to return. This, of course, included Lassar. At this point, the Incando dwarves were fleeing from the destruction of their homeland. What happened to their homeland exactly? Don't worry, we'll get there because it's very important. Just keep that in mind for now. Saradomin approached the fleeing Incando dwarves and promised them the city of Lassar if they aided Saradomin's forces in taking the city. The dwarves attacked the city, but their assault was initially repelled with the assistance of an incredibly strong vampire called Carnifex Maximus Vardovis. You might be familiar with Vardovis, as he's still around, in a sense, although he's looking a little worse for wear these days. Vardovis was specifically tasked with killing the leader of the Incando dwarves, Yonrith Loverkench. However, instead of staying and fighting, Yonrith got the fuck out of there and fled all the way to Zia, where he would eventually establish the House of Loverkench. Vardovis pursued him, but Lassar, losing such a powerful warrior, turned the tide of the battle against them, and the Incando dwarves eventually managed to seize control of the city. They renamed it to Camdozel and lived there in relative peace for the next several thousand years. But as we know, that peace would come to an end with the Fremennik Crusades. As the fighting between the Fremenniks and the dwarves raged on and the Incando dwarves began to fall, one dwarf called Kettler fled down deep into the unexplored passages of the mountain and managed to find herself somewhere entirely new. Somewhere that in the thousands of years they'd lived there, no Incando dwarf had ever managed to find. You see, Lassar was actually divided into two entirely separate areas. The fortress, which the dwarves had taken and renamed Camdozel, and the Undercity. When the people of Lassar realized that they were losing the battle against Saradomin and the dwarves, an order was given to seal the Undercity, and as such the dwarves never found it. This actually turned out to be quite the stroke of luck for the dwarves, because if the dwarves ever did find their way to the Undercity, they almost certainly would have all died. The Undercity of Lassar was the hub for magical and scientific research in the Zarosian Empire. Due to the secrets it held, it was capable of being completely sealed from the outside world in the event that the fortress above fell. Even after being sealed, the remaining residents of the Undercity were capable of living on in isolation for quite a long time. Except they didn't. The residents of the Undercity all died very soon after the exit was sealed. While Lassar had existed for a long time as a research hub, something changed shortly before the invasion of the dwarves. An object was brought to the city by a Zarosian general named Sliske. It was clearly very dangerous, having killed the people who last transported it. However, Sliske was able to use his abilities to construct a protective barrier around the object so that it could be studied in relative safety by the scientists of Lassar. He also stationed a mysterious Zarosian official called the Whisperer at Lassar to oversee the project. Not much is known about the Whisperer other than that she was a siren, which itself was rare, and that she was an expert in something called the Shadow Realm. While the Shadow Realm is still not well understood, the object was able to act as a conduit between this world and the Shadow Realm, with the scientists speculating that it could be used as a potential energy source. Experiments on the object were complicated. For reasons that will make sense in a little while, volunteers who worked on the object needed to be killed after the fact, yet even after doing so, they came back. Not as zombies, but as sentient beings, but they were different. The volunteers reanimated by the object spoke of the ocean, curses, and something called Blackstone. If you ask me, this is the point where, as a researcher, you cut your losses and you get the fuck out of Dodge because something is clearly not right here and it is not going to end well. Shortly after these experiments, the dwarves began to march on Lassar. Realizing that they were outmatched, Sliske decided to cut his losses, ordered the Whisperer to seal the city, and then removed the protective barrier on the object. One last big experiment with everyone in the city as the test subject, including the Whisperer herself. The resulting incident would lead to the madness and then death of every living soul in the Undercity, with the exception of the Whisperer. She was corrupted by the object, but she didn't die. Instead, she submerged herself within the waters below the Undercity, her body changing and growing, and remained there undisturbed for several thousand years. But even with all this, there is one layer further down we can go. Deep down in the bottom of the Undercity, in the furthest reaches of its sewer system, accessible only by throwing yourself into a pit in the middle of the city, and then climbing down even further again, is the object, surrounded by candles and corpses, frozen in a position of supplication as if they died praying. This is the Church of the Silent Choir, and the corpses that surround the object are the result of Sliskay's final experiment. All the citizens of Lassar were driven mad by the unshielded exposure to the object, forming a cult that calls itself the Silent Choir. The people literally worshipped it until they died on the spot. Now that we can finally see it, we learn that the object is known as the Ancient Pillar, or the Black Stone, and it's the cause of everything that happened in the Undercity. But as it happens, it's the cause of far more than just that. The homeland of the Incando dwarves was called Imcandoria. Common belief is that Imcandoria was destroyed by the eruption of a volcano, forcing the dwarves to flee. But that's another lie. In the secret library of the Myths Guild is a book called Incandoria's Fall, and it describes something both familiar and very, very strange. I, High Seer Gulbrand, on the island of Garma, have assembled various entries detailing the fall of Imcandoria. I leave this tome in the entrance hall of our great necropolis. Heed my warning, reader, and do not travel into that frozen wasteland. All that awaits is death. One of the acolytes discovered a strange idol along the beach today. It has the oddest markings scratched upon it, much akin to the runic rocks of the Fremnik. The elders of Imcandoria will know what to do with such a relic, so the other seers and I have agreed that it will be sent to them immediately. It has been 2 moons since we sent the idol away, and the storms have turned increasingly ferocious. We have gone below into the lower necropolis, hoping to seek refuge in the Forge of the Giants. The Giants allowed us to stay in their domain, however our time here is limited by our food stores, for no edible food can be produced in these horrible depths. In 3 moons we'll return to the surface and attempt the journey to Imcandoria. There we will begin our search for answers. The Giants have seen omens of death in the forges and have suggested we go with reinforcements. The city is empty. There are sounds coming from the temple. We approach with caution. The temple was a scene from a nightmare. Piles of bodies, pools of blood. A large, globulous mass sat hungrily on a throne of oily black rock. A shock of tentacles capped with claws dangled above its 3 pulsing, bulbous eyes. The elders circled the creature, chanting incantations in a strange, unknown tongue, covered head to toe in a mixture of blood and thick black sludge. They paid us no attention until the creature noticed our presence and began screaming. A fight soon broke out and the temple quickly turned into a blaze, the flames licking the ceiling. The harsh cackle from the elders as they burned pierced our minds with unimaginable terror. We're none the wiser of how that thing came to be, but that idol must have been far older than we first assumed. We fled back to the Isle of Garma. We suffered many losses, but the storm has quietened and this returning home was far easier. All the land surrounding Imcandoria is now blanketed with a very thick layer of snow. It shows no sign of change, and thus, we must leave. It's unclear why the events surrounding the fall of Imcandoria were so much more violent than what happened in Lassar. It's possible that being underground weakened the Blackstone's power, or perhaps it required more worshippers before it could summon whatever the fuck that was. Towards the end of the Lassar section of Desert Treasure 2, the player comes into direct contact with the Ancient Pillar and has a vision of madness forced upon them. An endless ocean, a city of Blackstone, and a phrase repeated to you. Do you really think you can save them? Ketla, the dwarf who stumbled into the Undercity to begin with, saves the player character from the corrupting influence of the Pillar. She tells you that to bring you out of your trance, she destroyed it. However, Ketla is later revealed to be a mask for none other than Sliskay himself, the man who brought the pillar to Lassar from Imcandoria in the first place, with the real Ketla having died long ago. Given Sliskay lies far more often than he actually tells the truth, we don't reliably know what happens to the pillar, but I sincerely doubt he actually destroyed it. We can't go back down to see if the pillar is still there, so for now it remains an unsolved mystery. Speaking of mysteries, you might remember that like 17 minutes ago I mentioned a Mos Le'Harmless of all places. Mos Le'Harmless is about as removed from Lassar as you can imagine, both physically and descriptively. Lassar is an underground city beneath a snowy mountain. Mos Le'Harmless is a tropical island in the middle of the ocean on the other side of the world. Yet the two have a very important commonality. I'm going to show you 15 seconds of me walking around Mos Le'Harmless. Keep in mind what we've discussed so far. I want to see if you can spot it. Time's up. That, sitting out in the open, in the middle of the town, is an exact replica of the Blackstone Pillar that destroyed Lassar and Imcandoria, that pushed whole civilizations to madness and summoned something unexplainable. And it's just sitting there. It's been sitting there for nearly 20 years. It has the exact same examined text as the pillar in Lassar, and an almost identical model. It's just a bit dimmer. And what do the residents of Mos Le'Harmless have to say about this? Nothing, with the exception of Mike, who runs the shop right next to the pillar and who will unsuccessfully attempt to sell it to you. At the very least, Mike does also offer a vague theory as to the origin of the pillar. Where did this pillar come from? Dunno, there are a load of islands out this way and a lot of them have little bits and pieces like this scattered around. The way I see it, there must have been some people out here at one point. Then they went away. Huh. That's an interesting thing to say, isn't it? Let's start building a theory here. What's the one other thing that Mos Le'Harmless is known for? That's right, cave horrors and a black mask. What are cave horrors, exactly? Their examined text describes them as horrible, emaciated, ape-like creatures with beady red eyes. At a first glance, they seem completely feral, but there's evidence of something akin to a society or the remnants of a society among them. Firstly, there's 5 variants of the standard cave horror, and internally, they all have labels that indicate different roles in society. There's the workers, the guards, and the alphas. They even wear different jewelry that corresponds to their role. Speaking of clothes, their black masks are clearly handmade by the cave horrors out of stone. Black stone, nonetheless. Cavey Davey, who warns you about the cave horrors, tells you that the black masks turn the howls of the cave horrors into a magical attack that damages your sanity. And I can't help but be reminded about the possessed elders from the fall of Imcandoria, whose screams directly pierced the mind of the dwarves. You can even see a carving of the black masks in a rock atop the cave, with the examined text stating that the carving is very, very old. Black stone, insanity, an ancient civilization that may no longer exist. Here's my theory. A long time ago, a colony of humans or human-like creatures lived on Mos Le'Harmless, until one day a black stone pillar washed up on their shores. The pillar corrupted the humans, driving them mad and causing them to essentially regress into a less evolved state. They lose their ability to speak coherently and can only howl with a scream that drives the people who hear it mad and continue to craft more masks out of black rock. Keep this process up for a very, very long time, and the result is cave horrors. The Mos Le'Harmless pillar is dimmer and smaller than the Lassar pillar. I think the reason it's not currently turning the pirates into lunatics is because it's run out of juice after thousands of years. It's become seemingly inert, and is, as a result, mostly harmless. There's no real way to verify this theory right now, but I think it's a solid theory. If you have an alternative interpretation, I'd love to hear about it. I recently made a video that touched on the very mysterious lore of the Broodoo victims, and I got some pretty damn interesting comments on that one, so please, let me have it. But what does it all mean? What are the pillars? Where do they come from? What is Blackstone? The connection to water and death and madness, and what does the phrase, "do you really think you can save them," actually mean? For now, we don't know. That's where the story ends in Old School, and even without an answer, it's a hell of a story. However, there is an answer of a kind in RuneScape 3. I want to preface this by saying that Old School and RuneScape 3 have divergent lore. They are not the same universe. I don't personally think that this is a hard answer to the questions that I've posed. All I'm going to say is that it relates to this guy called Zao, and if you want to know more about it, I'll put the RS3 wiki page in the description of this video. But again, I'm not personally convinced that this is canon to Old School. For example, fun fact, in RuneScape 3, that whole story about Lassar and the Incando dwarves and the fall of Imcandoria, most of that does not exist in RuneScape 3.